ለዚህ ህዝብ ብቻ ነው ምን ሞትለት ሀገሬ ሀገሬ እንድተኛ እንዳንቀላፋን ጉድ ነው የዛኔ ሁሉ ባንድ ላይ ሆኖ ሲነሳ ሁሉም ይለወጣል ሀገሬ መልካምም ይሆናል ሀገሬ ይጠፋል መጠላላት አንዳንዱን ባሽሙር መውጋት ሀገሬ ሰው ለሰው መድኃኒቱ ሀገሬ ዳንዱ እንዶ ሲገባኝ ሀገሬ Thank you.
Thank you, Tamar. I understood every word. Thank you. Let's clap for Tamar again. Thank you very much. May I welcome the panelists coming in for this discussion that's very important. May I call in Pilizi Atebei, please come. May I call Lulu? Lulu, please come forward. May I call Wayne Tesfaye, please come forward. And Johannes Mago, thank you very much. Please come forward. This panel is moderated by Andrew Karamaji. And please have a seat, take your seats. This panel is on financing a borderless future, powering Africa's integration through trade, technology, and talent. These are the people who bring in the reality of when the rubber meets the road, financing and everything, okay? All right, a big clap again for them. There's one person missing, that must be Wayne. Okay, let me try it. Let's get Wayne. I'm going to get her just now. Just getting Wayne as we are starting just now. Is Wayne out here? Wayne. Wayne is supposed to be on the front.
So Meget, you can start without Rainy, then when she comes, she can so that
I want her to be there. Confuse me.
Borderless! Africa! Borderless! Africa! Borderless! Africa! What do we want? Borderless Africa!
I'd like to begin by setting the stage with a few figures that I have picked from random places. And it will be the task of our experts to help us make sense of the same. And these are the random places I'm starting from. Apple, you guys have iPhones. Apple's operating budget is 416 billion per year, 416 billion. Please keep that figure in your mind. Samsung, $335 billion. Harvard University, $7 billion. Please listen keenly to the last figure. Harvard University, $7 billion. Budget of South Sudan is $4.9 billion. Now we're moving to countries. Somalia, 12.9 billion. Kenya, 136 billion. Tanzania, 87. Burundi, 7. DRC, 82. Rwanda, 14. Uganda, 64. The top 10 economies on the continent by nominal GDP. Don't worry, we have experts who understand nominal GDP. Are Ethiopia, Kenya, Egypt, Algeria, Angola, Morocco, Nigeria, South Africa, Tanzania, and Ghana, in that order, from top to number 10. Africa's nominal GDP total is $2.83 trillion. $2.83 trillion. Now, there's something called power purchasing parity. Power purchasing parity means how much, in simple terms, how much each person is able to spend as a citizen, and that's 10.8 trillion. However, I'd like to start with a little experiment to show us how misleading some of these classical economics concepts are. Who of us has money? Physical money in this room right now? Yeah, cash on you. Okay, quite a number of you. Let's assume that the total amount of money, if we were to collect all the money in this room, would end up with $10,000.
I have the 20 billion Zimbabwean money.
Okay, $10,000. I saw about 15 hands. Does that mean that to find person has, because that's what GDP tells us, we divide $10,000 by 15, and then we find out how much each one has? Would that be correct? GDP says you get the total amount of money in an economy, divide it by the population. The figure you get is how much everyone has. Is that accurate? No. Because he might have 5,000 of the 10,000. She has told you how much she has in Zimbabwe dollars. 20 million. 20 what? Billion. Here, one person has this. So the discussion, you can be a billionaire in Zimbabwe. So the discussion that we're going to have emerges from these economies that we are discussing, but is also an attempt at a better and alternative understanding of how we can harness three things: trade, technology, and talent. Let's say these three together: trade, technology, and talent. The table at the back: trade, what's the second? Technology, the third? All of us together: trade, technology, and talent. How do we harness these three for the benefit of our economies and also for the benefit of the things that we aspire for as Borderless Africa? Please help me welcome the following people who will help us make sense of the questions I'm going to pose and the contributions that you will have from the floor. In no particular order: Pemizi Ateve from Milwaukee Tours. Forgive me if I mispronounce some of that. My apologies in advance. Let's clap for her, please. Let's clap for him, please. I'm going to avoid genders now. Lulu Hangala, founder, The Wood Kitchen. Let's appreciate these people, please. Wayne Tesfaye, founder, Plan Block to Africa. Plan Back to Africa. And finally, but by no means the least, Johannes Majok from the African Union Commission. Let's appreciate him, please. Question number 1. My brother Johannes.
I knew it.
How much do we need, in your estimation, how much do we need to finance these dreams that we have for Africa, particularly a borderless Africa and the transformations that we think about? What figures have you interacted with insofar as those dreams are concerned?
Oh, I hold them together. Huh?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and good morning to you all. And thank to Africa Rising for giving us this platform to interact among ourselves and share our experience for the Africa we want. So I knew it, you are going to target me first. So let me say that I'm the first victim, but I will survive. I'm from the land of great abundance and Eden of diversity, and try to figure it out. Financing the borderless Africa, for me, is financing the Africa we want. And for us to ensure that happen, we need to look at the domestic resource mobilization. I will talk to that. But financing the Africa we want, according to the estimate of the African Union, if you look at the Agenda 2063, which is 38 years from today, it needs $300 trillion for us to implement the Agenda 2063. Please keep the figure, 300 trillion. That is the estimation of the African Union. But it is a continental agenda that talk about everything we mentioned in this room, whether it is free movement, passport, borderless Africa, trade, digital connectivity, and so on. Coming back to the domestic resource mobilization, and this is where I believe we should focus on. I like the fact that you mentioned, you started with Apple and Samsung, and you mentioned those billion of dollars they are making. But mind you, the iPhone we use today, or Samsung phone we use today, if you look at it, they are made from minerals resources, and these minerals are in our continent. It has battery. Your battery is made of lithium. Lithium is a rock. You can go in Kentica in Ethiopia here, you find that rock, lithium. You go to Zimbabwe, you find a lot of lithium, DRC and all the African countries. So we end up exporting this raw material to these giant companies to produce finished product that we use, and we spend thousands of dollars out of it. Today, maybe most of you have electric cars that are made out of copper from the DRC, graphite, and all those minerals that we have in the continent. So we are losing. Who is the loser? Is us. We export with a small penny, they give us small money, but when it comes back as a finished product, we pay a lot of money. So where do we finance the borderless Africa? We need to ensure that we harness the potential of our natural resources, especially the mineral resources, and we add value into it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's just a follow-up question before we hear from Pimizi. At the same, as you are making that argument for domestic resource mobilization, the fact of the matter is that global trade or African trade is organized in favor of these multinationals. And it is some of us in this room who have participated in those, or it's African elites who are taking part in forming those companies that engage in this trade with these huge multinationals to the detriment of Africa. It is we who conclude these agreements at that level and, in fact, engage in this kind of trade. What does that say about our dream if we are already giving away these precious minerals and resources to other places and not doing that processing, packaging, and perhaps even selling here on the continent?
Yes, I think my answer would be very simple and straightforward.
And if I may be unfair, please bear with me. Your country, I could say this about any of the countries represented here, but your particular country has a situation in a place called Abyei. It's an oil-rich region. And if you take a look at who is investing in and taking this wealth away from the country, it's a list of these huge corporations. And
we have heard from leaders, successive leaders in South Sudan saying we have to use our resources for the wealth of our continent, but it just doesn't happen. It's the Totals of this world, ExxonMobil, Royal Dutch Shell, and so on that are taking this wealth away. So with that in mind, please respond.
I know you are putting me in this spot now. I will be sweating very soon. Yes, in terms of trade, and I like the theme, you said trade, technology, and talent. I think talent is more important when it comes to innovation and technology and how we do things and how we add value into our raw materials, especially the minerals. We do have the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is a continental initiative. It is based in Ghana, Accra, currently. It has its secretariat there. But the idea is to promote inter-Africa trade. We trade among ourselves. And something very interesting in that agreement, it says rule of origins, mean anything that is made in Africa should be traded within Africa. Even if you have your bag of tomatoes, you can sell it. You have rocks like jewelries that women wear and make a nice necklace out of it. You have those ones you can trade within the African continent using those raw materials. So we need to leverage on the African Continental Free Trade Area as a vehicle for us to trade among ourselves. And don't see only I will trade with finished products. Even with raw materials is allowed, where countries that are enrolled in that regime will give you a leverage or a less tax, let's say, for you to take your goods to the neighboring countries. And just check, there is 47 countries who are part of that. So there is already a platform for us to trade among ourselves. Let's come back to natural resources. In the African Union, when we say minerals, it's also look at solid minerals, oil, and gas. And we still promote a mixed energy where we say, let's use our natural resources responsibly, because we don't also want to tamper with our environment. But we don't want also to match the aspiration of other countries like European Union say that you want to phase out the fossil fuel by 2030 or 2050, which shouldn't be the destiny of Africa. We need to set our own aspiration and our destiny. So, learning from each other, we have African who can invest within the continent. Let me just make an example, maybe Aliko Dangote or Suarez of Egypt. These guys have money. They can still inject in countries, including even in South Sudan, oil and other countries. But the bottom line is, we need to ensure that our natural resources are not used to keep Africa at a poverty level. We are for energy transition, but it has to be fair. It has to be fair in a way that we've been talking about value addition for many centuries. But can we start a little to have processing plant in the continent? So these are I don't know why it's loud now. These are the steps that we are doing. And in the African Union, we have the Africa Mining Vision and continental policy that we wish the influencer also can develop interest into that. Because please, your phone that you are using to create content is made of our minerals. Think of that. The nice car you are driving is made out of our minerals. Can we think of making them in the continent? Thank you very much.
Thank you. If I may come to you, Pimizi, you have made significant investment in tours and related services. Tell us about how easy or difficult it is to move across this continent. You've heard what the previous speakers mentioned regarding the interconnectivity of the continent. Tell us about how easy or difficult it is to move. In meetings like these, every time you arrive here, one of the common stories is about how people had to board about 4 flights, 5 flights just to travel within the continent. And I'm sure this is something that affects a business like yours. So just give us that background before we get to the actual question that I have for you.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to be here. I'll start with numbers. By 2030, African tourism is expected to reach 100 billion in terms of numbers. But most of the tourism is about international travel. There's more international tourists coming than African themselves moving inside Africa. And that's why borderless Africa makes more sense to us. And I believe if there is a really a borderless Africa, these numbers will be more. To reply to your question, I think there are many people here traveling around, and we have the common problems. The borders are difficult. Sometimes even when you have a visa, even the welcome of the immigration people make your travel start kind of crazy. And we mentioned it through all of this meeting. It's not easy to get some visas sometimes. And I tried to go to Botswana, for example, last year. I couldn't get the visa. So all these are situations I'm sure most of the people here have experienced at least once. And I remember someone mentioned about ratification of laws. This is one of the issues we have. I remember in Togo, we signed the agreement with South Tome government to say that we can go to South Tome without visa. And then we arrived there early this year, proud and happy that we don't need a visa. But at the airport, they told us we still need a visa because we have not signed it yet. Even though it has been signed by the minister, the president has not ratified. So I think it's not easy at the moment to move in Africa, to reply to the question.
Thank you. And what help people like governments like presenting this as help that they're giving to companies like yours or organizations like yours? Do you think that reduced tariffs for inter-country trade or interregional trade would help, or is this, as some economists would like us to believe, would it distort the market? Would you benefit from that kind of assistance as we finance this borderless Africa dream?
Yes, I think most of us, when we're coming, if you look at your flight ticket, you see the taxes. I don't know if you have the details, but mostly the taxes are what makes, for example, the travel ticket higher. And one of the issues most of the time people mention to the reason why they don't travel in Africa and they even prefer to go to abroad is the flights. And it's because of the taxes. Governments applying high taxes. So for sure, if governments find a way to reduce taxes, it will be easier to move around.
Thank you. I will get back to you on a question pertaining to still on movement, labor, particularly labor. We've talked about goods and services, but labor especially. But I will engage the audience very briefly to check if they're awake and paying attention. What did we say are the three focus areas of this discussion? 1, trade; 2, technology; and 3, talent. So the person I'm going to pose a question to next, Wayne, represents a huge wealth of talent as the founder of Plan Back to Africa. Got it now. What were you thinking about in founding this organization, this entity, and what has it done so far insofar as this dream that we have is concerned? I think it's fair to start there before I put you on the spot. Go ahead.
All right, so my journey is a little bit different. I have an immense passport privilege with my German passport, as I was born and raised in Germany, but I never felt like I belong. And it was very early that I knew that I will raise my children one day on the African continent, because I saw what it has done to me and many other people in my generation. And then in 2019, I finally decided to make the big move, overcome my fears, my doubts, all my insecurities, and showed up even though I was not ready, even though I didn't have it figured it all out, not financially stable. People always believe you need to wait for the perfect time, the perfect conditions to make the move. But I learned to do and to succeed with my relocation, even when the time and the conditions were not perfect, on the contrary, even worse. And that is why my first attempt failed. I settled in Ethiopia for 2 years, and then the war broke out in 2020, which forced me to basically leave overnight, leave everything behind. And that was when I, for the first time, felt this kind of diaspora guilt for having the passport privilege, having to leave my brother, his children, my family behind. And it's actually insane. They had to force me to leave. They said if we had what you have, we would have been out 2 years ago already. And yeah, I felt how powerful it is to have a passport and how important it is to have a borderless Africa. And yeah, since my upbringing, as my father is from Eritrea and my mother from Ethiopia, I remember the time when I was a little child. We used to fly to Asmara and then take a trip to the Red Sea, had a wonderful time there at the beach, and then would take a bus over the mountains to the north of Ethiopia, cross the border that was open at that time, and then visit my family in Adwa, where my mother is from, a very historical place where the Battle of Adwa, where the Italians were defeated. And so I didn't have, the borders back then were not our reality. And then when the war broke out and I studied the history of that region, I realized what borders actually do. It's crazy because these borders are artificial. They are actually not real. You don't see them when you cross the mountains, right? And then at the same time, what these borders do is they create realities for the people, that they see each other as different, that, there is the same people, same culture, same language, same beliefs, same food. These borders being instrumentalized by political powers, pitting people against each other and making people to fight and die for something that is not real. And the reality is hundreds of thousands of people die.
Yeah, so you've given us a good background into the tough decisions that you had to take, the perilous journeys that you endured. How did you finance Plan Back to Africa?
Yeah, so what I did was then when I moved to Ethiopia, I knew I need a home base. And so what I did was I rented a home, and it was my mom's home because our parents, they still want money, right? Even if it's their home, right? So you have to pay them, and then we renovated the space together, and then via Airbnb and other short-term rental platforms, such as Booking.com, we rented out the spare rooms. And so that's how I started to finance my living. Actually, the plan was to just finance the cost of living in an expensive city like Addis Ababa. But then eventually I started offering experience, because what was beautiful is I welcomed a lot of people, Ethiopians from the diaspora, who were adopted and who came to Ethiopia to look for their biological parents and to reconnect with their roots, because they were raised by Europeans. And then we did tours. I taught them the history. I studied cultural anthropology and African studies. And I learned how much I enjoy not just hospitality, but welcoming people and showing them Africa through the lens of a diaspora who returns, who heals. And then I found that this concept of building short-term rentals is actually an amazing way to have the diaspora who also wants to relocate, leave the US, leave the UK and the West in general, to relocate to the continent, as a perfect way to settle on the continent. One way, if it's in your home country, right? So what I did was securing my residency by descent through my mom. And then for those who, which I find is a shame, the people of African descent who cannot claim and secure residency by descent. I mean, in some countries like Ghana and Sierra Leone is possible, but it requires a huge capital. And I believe that's a shame. They should all have free entry rights to the African continent, rights to register businesses without spending thousands of dollars, right? And so I found out that for them, there's also a way to do that, which I did in Kenya. And I'm in the process of doing that in Zanzibar right now too, where I also have short-term rentals, is registering a business in an African country and then through the business license, secure a work and residence permit. And that's how I founded Home Base Africa, a platform that helps diasporas to relocate to the African continent, build short-term rentals, and transform these short-term rentals into sanctuaries where they can share their stories of relocating, reconnecting with their home, You know, it's amazing. We have like over 20 different countries represented worldwide in over 10 African countries. And all of our members are breaking a generational trauma. Like we have Zanzibaris who fled to Dubai during the revolution, and their parents gave up on their homeland and said, investing in Africa is a bad financial decision. You know, I was scammed so many times. But the daughter decides, no, I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to do it in a community. That's how she joined us. Yeah. African Americans who said we are tired of what's going on in the US. We want to reconnect with our roots, even though they tell us Africans don't welcome us, they hate us. Everyone is breaking a curse, like a generational trauma, a toxic narrative, and we're doing it as a community. I'm so proud of.
Thank you so much. Temperature check with the audience. If you are following, we have about 4 solutions right now. The first one is on domestic revenue mobilization, that is directed at what governments can do to intervene. We have a proposition around also on tax interventions that governments owe entrepreneurs like themselves here. And we've also had a brilliant idea around, and one that there's proof of concept for, that she has built rentals that returning Africans or people from the diaspora can come back and, rent, and then revenue is raised that way. And there's a soul to that idea, that it's not just about rentals and business and so on. And it's actually working. I have a moral dilemma to present to you, Lulu. And because of what a dilemma it is, I'll pose it to the audience as well. We've had 3 stories now, and you can see how everyday Africans are struggling within a financial system that is seemingly rigged against them, right? Yet we also know that there are things called havens, tax havens. You had her talk about opening up business in another jurisdiction, in another country, perhaps because of tax purposes. Here's the moral dilemma to present to you. Since we are not the causes or the causers of these problems, why should we follow tax laws? Why don't we also do what the people who engaged in the Panama Papers business, those who evade taxes legally, do, so that we raise money for Africans rising? Do you get my dilemma? Why should I follow the tax laws of my country, yet the wealthy in my country and on the continent are not necessarily following those taxes? No offense to Nigerians, but I'm not sure that Mr. Dangote pays as much tax as the ordinary Nigerian pays. It actually seems to me that when you make more, you're exempt even more from the tax rate. So why should she suffer with taxes in her country and other places where she's opened businesses, or he suffer paying taxes, corporate tax, income tax, and whatnot? Yet there are ways to evade taxes. It's legal, but is it moral? And is it consistent with the ideals and values that Ngesa was teaching us about yesterday? That's the dilemma at your doorstep, Lulu.
Wow. You went deep real fast. So for our business, I've run a couple of businesses. Some of them have not done well. I've had very public failures. And one of my public failures came about because of people trying to, evade taxes, and they had a tax haven somewhere. I didn't know the details. I was still a youngling in terms of business and didn't really understand what I was getting into. Wasn't really paying attention to where money was going. I was blackface. I was enjoying it. I was making money. But now I do pay attention to that. And now that I own my own business with my husband, no other partners, it's a family business. And it's a creative business. I looked at influencing as a business I look at the creative sector as a business, and being able to pay taxes in Zambia, for example, has helped me propel my business. I'm able to get more work because I am paying the taxes and I'm compliant. I realized that non-compliance can be extremely expensive at the end. In the playing field we are in now with the current government, it's not about where you come from, what tribe. The government has digitized tenders, for example, so our business can apply for a tender. The tender is sent out to everyone, and if I am tax compliant, then I am able, to compete for certain work. Because of the type of business we do, collaboration has been key. And what has helped us open our business beyond our own borders has been collaborating with a South African partner that we met just through networking. And we opened our business in South Africa. And even there, with her as a partner, we still have to pay tax. And it's helped propel the business even further. I know in the creative sector, especially, a lot of creators and creatives feel, oh, they're just taking my money. But from my experience, it has helped us be competitive with larger companies, because a lot of creatives are not paying tax, then they're exempt from certain opportunities that are there for us. So for us, it's just a way to propel ourselves.
Great. It's a follow-up question. In my country, Uganda, okay, we were told, in my province, my African province, Uganda, we had a tax introduced on the internet, on social media. A 2% tax was introduced on, and our, forgive me for the word, but our fairly old president said that this is a tax on gossip. He wanted to say TikTok and he called it chit chat, and there was a lot of laughter. But he said, I am imposing this tax because young people are spending their time gossiping. So clearly he didn't quite get the idea of what social media can do as a tool for marketing, for sales, for business, and so on. A follow-up to you. You've made the case for tax, but would taxing influencers, let me make it a bit more specific, be productive or counterproductive in your view?
I believe it's productive. We're having the same conversation in Zambia right now. If we are making money, if we are companies, I think we need to also start looking at ourselves as influencers, as companies. We are businesses. And I guess we are all different types of businesses, but please let's look at ourselves as businesses if we want to grow. What do the taxes pay for? I look at it from that point of view. It helps fund health. It helps fund the roads. Why are we exempt from that as citizens then? We are citizens of a country. We should contribute to the country. I do have issues though with maybe how high the tax should go. Currently in Zambia for certain thresholds, and even with South Africa, there's certain thresholds. And I encourage a lot of creators and creatives to get to know what's really happening. And sometimes it's hard for us to understand. You have a friend somewhere that's has knowledge about taxes. You have a friend that's knowledgeable about law. So I always use those networks to help me understand better, like, okay, where can I go with this? There's a point we were paying extremely high taxes because we hadn't done enough research. We just thought, we should be paying VAT. That was 15%, when actually what I should be paying is 5% turnover tax. So when we do our research, we're able to see where we can pay and what we are paying for. And I guess maybe I just like to be compliant with the laws of the land, but I just believe as influencers, it's a job. Brands are paying us. If brands are not paying you, there's a way you are making money digitally. You are selling something. Some of us here have started traveling and have formed tourism companies without realizing it. To you, you're saying, well, I'm just getting a group of 15 people and we're going to travel. That's a business. So be compliant, and that's how it will grow.
Let's appreciate the next Commissioner General of the Zambia Revenue Authority. Please clap for her. To you, Johannes. As we now move to solutions and to hear a little feedback from the audience, another situation to draw your attention to, and the question to the audience is what lessons we can draw from that as Africans Rising and for this Borderless Africa campaign. So we have huge companies like Netflix. Netflix does not own movies. It certainly does not make the movies. It is simply an intermediary that helps you watch what you want, when you want it, for a fee, right? Uber does not own, but they help you get access to a vehicle. So they are in between the service. Airbnb does not own the table here, table with Sarah. Airbnb does not own or houses, but somehow they make a lot of money. And we've had tax disputes about the same. Facebook says, or Meta says, we are incorporated in Ireland, which is a tax haven. Our operations are in other countries. So you can't find Facebook. When you try to tax it in Uganda, they say, no, our offices are our headquarters are in Ireland. When you go to Ireland, they say, no, we don't have operations here to tax. Our people are using our service over there. What brilliant ideas, exploiting the system as it is, can we leverage on and harness trade, technology, talent to benefit from such brilliance that we see from these huge corporations? The direct question to you, Johannes, is what do we learn from the global corporations, and what ideas can we draw from them to fund these dreams that we have? I know you've talked about domestic mobilization, but what ideas do we have from there that we can piggyback on for our benefit as Africans?
I think those ideas, if you look at the continent, some of them are domesticated. In my country, we don't use Uber, but we have an application called Shiluana. Shiluana is like a local language, just take me away, the meaning of it. And in many other countries also there is alternative app where I don't necessarily want to use Uber, but I get the idea and I develop my local app. You can give it whatever local name and it still get the same tax within the country. And that will support your idea, Madam Commissioner, in getting more tax from those innovators. So the global north or the developed world, we can learn from what they are doing and adopt it to our structures, into our context, to fit our need, because we really need technology. If we can't drive it, we can adopt that technology, but it should be in our own way of doing it. That is one. The other aspect is when you look at those global institutions, and you heard our leaders that are talking about reforming the global financial institution like the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, which is a bit difficult because you forget what you have, but you are looking for what other can offer you, right? We do have something called African Financial Institution within the continent. The African Investment Bank, the African Monetary Fund, and the African Central Bank that is looking at unifying all our central banks and have one currency. Why don't we focus on this? Our own institution that can deliver to our desire and can finance whatever innovation we have in the continent. I think that is my approach for your question.
Brilliant. Absolutely love it. Coming to you, Winnie. We have people like Burna Boy. Please give me the names. I've given you the lead. Burna Boy, name others, Africans. David O. Who else? The Tanzanians are very angry at him. I don't know if I should mention his name. Who? Sauti Sol. Shatawale. This table is quiet. Is it a representation of the age group? Who? Maraba. Oh, wait. He said he's sitting amongst us and we are looking for other names. Rocky. We have Rocky. Thames. Yes, Thames. Okay. Here's the question. How should we leverage the brand and the popularity, the pizzazz that these people have for the benefit of financing the dream for a borderless Africa? These are our people. Some of us know them. We can access them easily, more than others. What do we do about, how do we use that for the benefit of this campaign?
I don't know how to answer that question because I honestly don't care about these people. Like, I believe we have so much power, we don't need them. Sorry, I don't know what to say.
No, it's your opinion and I respect it. Go ahead.
I prefer to go back to your question that you asked him, Johannes?
Yes,
right?
yes.
So when we look at these companies, right, they are benefiting from the sharing economy. And so these are goods that we can share. And why should everyone own his own, I don't know, let's say we have a talented tour guide who can tell beautiful stories. And you are from the tourism industry. And he can provide someone that he works with in, let's say here in Addis Ababa, and promote him to hosts, to guest houses, to hotels. And then we can share and support him, invest in him to train more people for capacity building, for instance. And also, it's actually not rocket science that we build our own platforms, which is, for instance, the goal of Home-Based Africa in the future. Because, I just also want to highlight Airbnb is just a tool, a platform. There are so many different platforms. And there are platforms, for instance, that attract people in the Middle East, like halal travel. There are platforms like Trip.com who target the Asian market and Chinese people, but we don't have a platform that specifically targets the diaspora, Africans, who come back and who tailor tours, home bases, and experience that uplift local communities. That's, I think, the most important aspect. When we come back as the diaspora, what is our why? Are we just fleeing a system and bringing internalized, let's say, problems and maybe kind of supremacist thinking with us to the continent? So we should rather work on that. I don't know how Bernabeu can help us with that because I just see him flexing all that.
Okay, great. I like that you've taken a dissenting view, but it appears someone is itching on the same panel. I don't know if they're going to dissent as well, but I'd like to hear their opinion and then we'll come to the audience.
So maybe because I'm a creative, I will say they cannot be ignored. For me, talent is my currency. So when I look at music stars, African music stars, they're not just a cultural phenomenon, okay? The creative economy is so powerful, and these are mega stars. They have so much influence. Their voices are already borderless. Okay, you get into Zambia right now, you'll be shocked at how much Afrobeats we play, like Nigerian music. It's influencing how we are doing music. So their voices are powerful, and we can use their voices to let the young people buy into what we're talking about here. So for me, talent, creatives, we are one of the most powerful tools that can be used. And you see it with governments. To win an election, you gotta have a good song. We've seen it in Zambia. President Sata was voted in because of a song. There's a track record there. It's powerful.
Okay. Yes. So in law, we have cross-examination, re-examination, examination in chief. So please go ahead.
I'm not saying that they are irrelevant, right? For instance, I am a big fan of Kelis, the US American artist, but I respect her even more now for coming to Kenya, investing in land, building a farm. And while I think art and music is so powerful, I don't want to underestimate the power of the people. I just want to give an example. Burna Boy wanted to give a free concert in Burkina Faso, but Captain Ibrahim Traore said, we don't need party now. We have to stand on business. We are focusing now on the real thing. So thank you, maybe next time. And I think that's so important, while at the same time not ignoring the influence they can have, but not underestimate the power that we as the people have. That's what I mean.
Great, thank you. The final question from me before we close with comments from the audience, and I'll be fairly strict in terms of time, is to you, Pimizi, on cross-border finance. There are institutions that now offer something called syndicated loans. You as a business person would know and have interacted with this. Is this syndicated loans that come from many banks from different jurisdictions? Is this something that we should encourage, even though it sometimes causes distortions in the local economy? Companies like yours would then have to pay higher premiums on such loans and so on. What's your thought about the notion of cross-border finance?
Okay. Okay, so thank you for the question. I come from a country where the banking system is not really good for entrepreneurs. So I would honestly say most entrepreneurs don't, because they ask you so much guarantee when you want to take a loan from a bank. So now I was even discussing yesterday with a guy from Eritrea. Most companies are trying to base themselves in some places where they can easily have access to funding. And we are lucky in Africa. There are places like Kenya where people are moving a lot, but it's not enough. We need really to work on a banking system that can be profitable to entrepreneurs. And you'll be shocked, but even entrepreneurs from abroad or foreigners have more access to funding in Africa than Africans. Because sometimes banks ask you just so many things that you cannot provide as a young entrepreneur. They will ask you a house or a land, and you understand that it's not that easy when you are a starting entrepreneur. Yeah. So I think the most funding that people occur to is raising funds, and it comes with many consequences that are sometimes bad. And most of businesses have been stolen like that.
Yeah.
I think you understand today many businesses started in Africa, but they are not owned by Africans anymore because of funding.
Essentially also agreeing with Johannes, who talked about an amalgamated banking system for the continent.
I think we need a banking system that understands the culture of Africa, and that is understand the realities, because it's crazy, but the last years I've noticed most of the banks, even local banks, have been bought by many big firms that are located outside of Africa sometimes. And the banks, they come to make money. They don't understand the culture. And we are a continent still struggling. So we need people who understand how the continent is at the right moment and go towards that goal.
Great, thank you very much. Let's appreciate him, please. I promise to check with you on how attentive you've been. We had a point around domestic resource mobilization. Each table must give me a solution that has come from this panel and one that we can use for financing the Borderless Africa campaign. So one was domestic revenue mobilization. Number two, this table where I'm at, solutions that we've picked from the panel. And if you have a different one, you can also share it. Hands, I'm looking at this table. I'm not letting you off the hook, even if you look down, okay?
Well, I think in order for any kind of solution, the AFCTA agreement really need to be implemented, not just what we are seeing currently. We all know that we are yet to see the benefits, but it has to be practical and applicable to the average person if we are really looking at GDPs of the country. So I think that's an approach that will be useful for our agenda.
Okay, thank you. Full implementation of the AFCFTA. This table here, we had solutions about entrepreneurship, creating and registering small, medium enterprises. Solutions, I'm looking for solutions. Yes?
I think it's high time African countries migrated. It's high time African countries migrated from heavy reliance on aid and debt and move towards trade. You'd agree with me that sources of trade, I mean aid and debt, largely are those whose agenda is slightly different from ours. But if we had taken the route of trade, I'll give an example of Ghana, for example. Ghana produces about 800,000 of cocoa. But you'd see there's someone in Ghana who has never tasted chocolate. I mean, that's something that we have to start thinking radically to say, why can't we start producing these things locally and see trade as the future? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trade, not aid. The table at the back, I'm on my way to you. Solutions. These ladies look like they're discussing a solution.
Andrew, I don't like what you have done to me. I think for me, we could think of alternative sources of funding our own initiatives. In Kenya, Mildred will tell you we have something called Shama. So it's a small saving scheme where we put our resources together. And traditionally, I grew up seeing like my mother and my grandmother putting it together to buy something they wanted. So I'm thinking, if we had an idea, why wouldn't we think of putting in resources together? And they could be small, and by resources, maybe it's not monetary, it could be even skills to push for a certain agenda. Because one of our most undoings as Africans is that most of our agendas or ideas or startups are not funded by us, unfortunately. And because they're not funded by us, they also come with conditions.
So we look forward to the day the next Influencers Forum will be. He will give us his house and accommodate us. She will bring 20 cows to feed us for that week. 100 cows. She will pay for air tickets and so on. And then we will take. Huh? You're scared. Air tickets. Yes, she says she's got us on the air tickets so that we finance. By the way, it's a historical fact. If you would please check the archives. The meetings, Pan-African meetings, were financed locally for people to attend the Pan-African conferences. Farmers, teachers, students would contribute money for their representatives to travel to these meetings. There's a burning hand here, and then I'll end shortly.
I was just add something like first of all, like for the cacao from Ivory Coast or Ghana, we send it abroad and then we go to chocolate. And also, like as a person that I traveled a lot in the continent, like in the most touristy countries in the continent, you see the big lodges, the big like lodges, hotels, whatever. It's run by Western people. And as African, we need first to share how we can, like, because you cannot just say to someone, let's come and get this hotel in this specific place, like what she's doing, like to help people to build their own projects in the continent.
Thank you very much. Second last comment.
You can hear me? Okay. I also want to add something to what she just said. And I think sometimes in terms of, I just speak from a perspective of entrepreneurship, and sometimes we focus too much on like, we need all this money to start to build something. But there's so many ways, for example, with the business we do with Wayne as well. Like you can, for an Airbnb, you need investment, you need capital. But there are also other ways to start this business for free, for example. You know, like breaking it down simpler, teaching entrepreneurship, like on a, how can you do something with as little as possible to start your way up, and then you can start investing more money later on, you know? And I think sometimes we're just waiting for money to come in to be able to do something. But I think it's maybe the wrong approach as well to just start with what we have, even if it's limited, and then build our way up, like to grow eventually later on, I think.
Thank you. Please clap for yourselves as the audience.
Oh, well, what I wanted to say, I don't think 30 seconds, but I just wanted to add to the, in terms of the creatives and being a great part of the agenda. I believe that, culture and musical voices have to be a critical part of the Borderless Africa initiative, just because we are the communication kind of connection point between the population and ideology, and also the population and big ideas. And for a space like our continent that has been divided for a long time, and this has been etched into our consciousness, to break through, we have to use something that has had the fluidity of communication for our people, and music provides that. Granted that the music of today does not amplify the Pan-African consciousness, and most of our artists who are extremely popular are from major labels from outside, whose agenda is more commercialization and commodifying our people, we can still be able to engage those voices now to rather use that that platform to articulate our stories. And in doing so too, we'll be able to generate the income that is required within the continent, because when music is stronger here, it boosts tourism, it boosts clubs, it boosts the ability for us to generate money within. And I believe that when we look at it in that sense, then we can be able to harness the power of the creatives for our advancement.
Brilliant, thank you. And for the first time during this discussion, I'm standing next to you because I intend to keep you on time. Parting shots in reverse order, starting with Winnie. You have 30 seconds.
Parting shots?
Yes, concluding remarks.
So I believe for a Borderless Africa, we are the solution. We have to support each other, amplify each other's voices, support each other's businesses. Yesterday, I found out one of our members here, of our brothers, Ziggy from Senegal, has 2 Airbnbs in Senegal. Share it with your circle, support the brother, support local businesses. That's my solution.
Great.
African-owned businesses.
Yeah. I also believe in a borderless Africa. Thank you. I believe in a borderless Africa, an Africa where we move freely in between countries, where I can go and start a business in Ghana, knowing that I'll pay taxes, of course, but where the laws that will be put in place are not laws that are not a problem for us as Africans, but that encourage investment, intra-African investment, because I believe the day where we'll be able to really take off as a continent is where we come together really. And as an example, I give you, when you go to the ports in Africa, you don't see much exchange between countries. For example, if you have a car coming to Togo and you want to send it to Ghana, it has to transit sometime somewhere before coming back. Thank you.
Okay, so my parting words will be, again, let's pay our taxes, because you'll be able to get more
Yes,
attention,
Commissioner.
yes, from your governments, but also I work a lot with brands. And the brands, if you want to scale your creative business, the brands want people who are compliant. But also when I talk of brands, we as creatives can create opportunities for a borderless Africa by pitching to them ideas that encourage cross-border pollination. So I'll give an example of our business. Currently, we're going to be shooting a TV show where we've pitched to a brand in South Africa to invest in what we're going to be doing in Zambia that will take young creatives to South Africa for for them to just grow and learn. And we've also partnered with a college there to impart knowledge to these students. So there's so many ideas that we have, and let's be open to the private sector. Sometimes we go to the NGOs, we're looking for funding from NGOs, from government, while the private sector have huge funds for CSR, but also for advertising. But with our creativity, we can turn the advertising into something even more powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your contribution. The Borderless Africa is of our own making. We want to work collectively and jointly. And above all, we need to learn how to work together as African. Please, let's work together. Let's not work against each other. With that, we can ensure that the Borderless Africa is achievable. Thank you.
Pimizi Ateve, Lulu Hangala, Wayne Tesfaye, and Johannes Majok, thank you very much in this discussion. We look forward to hearing and learning more from you. And to the audience, you've been great. And I'm returning to Studio 1 with Ngesa, who's looking at me with a scary glare from the corner of her eye. Thank you very much, and I'll hand back to her.
Thank you.
But before you leave,
Just a minute. Yeah.
the producer has something to say.
Yeah, Andrew, before you leave, I just want to also put you on the spot. You're good at putting people on the spot.
Very good.
What would be